up. Everything about this is telling me that this cook is a bad idea, but the science is out there, the test is out there. We're going to cook this from frozen and see what happens. Add a little bit of salt and pepper. That's not going to work. It's frozen. It's not even sticking to it. But apparently, there's over 100 years worth of history in doing this. It started in the 1930s. Frozen meat instruction from the USDA progressed into a 1940 government experiment, figuring out what the cook times would be, how much time to add to it. And finally, in World War II era, instruction to the field cooks how to deal with frozen meat. There's a lot of precedence with this, but we're going to start this thaw inside the oven. Once I get it to fit in, we're gonna have to do a little bit of trim of the bone on the top end of this shoulder. We're going into the oven for 1 hour and see what kind of ugly gray monstrosity we get out of this. In the interim, during that hour, we're going to get our onions, garlic, carrots, and celery ready for the next step. I've got so many questions about how this turns out. How much water dropped out? What's the exterior like? I have no idea what this is going to look like inside. All right, let's get some temperature readings. You can see it's a little bit gray. There is some liquid forming in the bottom. On our temperature, turn this around so that you can see it. Not getting any resistance. 66. Oh yeah. As we get closer to the bone there, not sure if that's the bone or just frozen. Yeah, that's frozen. So it's still frozen in the middle. We're on a cooking journey here, so we'll keep moving forward. On to the next step. Now we've got to get some seasoning in this. We're going to throw some dusting of garlic in there, dusting of onion powder. I like a lot of onion. Some thyme, and then salt and pepper. Heavy on the pepper, not quite as much salt. We'll be adding salt in another form with a lot more flavor. So now we've got the next problem. This is a dry shoulder. If we left it to cook just like this, it would result in dry meat. So we introduce our next strategy, which is called barding. And this is hundreds of years old, a way of taking a drier piece of meat and adding fat in. And we're using bacon. You could do it with beef fat as well. So that's now set up. That's got its barding on it. Now that we have that piece of meat barded, and this is surprisingly cool to the touch, we need to add those vegetables in. And actually, there is a little bit of fat and grease on the bottom here, and I will show you that. I'm going to throw a little bit more fat in there with a pat of butter. Who doesn't like butter? Now we're going to build a bed with our vegetables. Then that meat goes back in on top. Next, we need to add, this is optional, we're going to throw a little sprig of fresh rosemary in there. A bit of Worcestershire in a cup and a half. It was about a tablespoon. A cup and a half of Better Than Bouillon beef bouillon. Hands down the best bouillon ever made by man. And we're not drowning the meat in this. We're adding moisture. This is a braise. We're adding moisture into the environment so that what is typically a dry cut of meat has its own moist environment to do a long, slow cook in. We're going to then put this back in the oven at around 325 degrees. I'm hesitant. I want to put this at 350 degrees so bad I can taste it. I'm going to be a little bit more patient. I'm going to back it off some, down to 325 for the 4 hours. And hour 2 or several times in between there, we're going to check in on this for 2 reasons. Check the liquids that are forming, and then take some temperature measurements to see where the cook is going inside. And don't get wrapped around the axle over how long this takes And we're cooking until we get the feel, that collagen, that sinew, that tough parts of the shoulder break down and render into liquids inside the meat. Back into the oven we go, and up to 325. We're 2 hours in to phase 2, and I'm curious what's happening with the temperature inside. What does it look like? Oh, we're seeing the bones pull out. It's definitely thawed. And we're at 207. That's way up there. 206. That's actually temperature that's where we want to be. 2 hours was enough time. Checking tenderness. Still a little tough. A little bit of resistance on that. Softer on the ends. We're gonna back the temperature down and let this braise go a little bit slower, a little bit longer. Liquid looks good. I'm gonna give it another hour. So we're back just a couple of minutes along here, past the 2 hour mark. And this happened a lot quicker than I was expecting it to. So I put the temperature down to the 275. I wanna taste this liquid on the bottom and see whether or not it's getting too salty and concentrating. It's a fair amount of liquid down there. Ooh, very sweet tasting. Not too salty. I want to get some liquid on top of this, increase kind of the liquid in the environment some, and baste some of the fat across the top. And slow this down. We're only going to do another 45 minutes on this. That meat is taking a pounding right now with the 300 and slowing it down. We should, those connective tissues, the collagen, the rendering of that should happen a little bit slower, and we don't have to hammer this meat so hard. It's been about 35 minutes. Much better. I want to get a little bit more brown on that, so I'm going to do a quick high temperature bake. Take it up to 450 and just brown this up just a tad. Get a little bit of crunch in that bacon because that's going to go great on our potatoes. My mouth is watering. There she is, and all that delicious juice. The thing is, the vegetables, they're kind of sacrificial. We're going to strain those out and make a gravy out of that. But for now, this meat needs to drop over here and go into a rest. And it is wanting to fall apart. So let's get that covered and let that rest. Delicious au jus. Not too much fat, to be expected with venison. But I believe there's still enough in there to make the gravy. Man, my mouth is watering. So now we need to pull some of this bacon off, dice it up to go over the mashed potatoes. Here comes the money shot. Well, it's not pull-out tender. right, first taste. Plain, nothing on it. Very tender. Touch on the dry side, but not atrocious like some deer meat that I've had. Let's try it in its natural au jus. We'll dip it in that, just the sauce. Oh yeah, just as tender and juicy. It's definitely good that way. Let's go for a little bit of a shred. And we'll plate up a full plate with that gravy that we threw together. You gotta remember, this is a shoulder, a frozen shoulder experiment. We'll dollop of some mashed potatoes. If this is not a delicious Sunday evening meal, you're crazy. Sprinkle some of that reserved bacon over the mashed potatoes. I do need some cracked pepper. It this being August, the figs are coming in and some nice red color on the plate. Tell me, that's not a meal fit for a king. So good. So my full evaluation of this, it being frozen did not hurt this process at all. You don't have to start with the thawed shoulder. You're just adding probably about an hour longer of cook time, and this turns out amazing. The texture, the moisture, the au jus, all fits together perfectly in this meal. This is a home run. This is definitely worth it.
If you like this video, you should check out our full playlist of venison cooking.